Hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Jeff, Stephen, and Dree, and Elias. Good to see y'all. Thanks for jumping on tonight. We've got a guitar workout tonight. We're going to do some playing. Strum and Susan, how did it go? I trust everything's great. It must have went smooth. Hey, Charlie boy, what's up? We are going to do the guitar workout tonight, so we're going to do a little bit of playing. Hey, Mark Lucas, Rick Sticks. Okay, so sorry to hear about the pain post-surgery, Susan, but onward and upward. I'm glad that the surgery went fine. Martin, welcome. Joe, welcome. Thanks for dropping in, everybody. We've got a PDF with some tabs. Just below here, expand out the description. You'll see a link. Alex is here. Welcome. John from Belgium. Excellent. And Ryan's here as well. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody joining at the top of the hour here. And ready to rock. So, Mr. Daniel, yes. Well, thank you very much. Welcome, sir. Okay. Well, as always, a sort of tradition with the guitar workout, the first exercise is some sort of a warm-up, usually some variation of the chromatic warm-up, getting all the fingers involved, right? So sort of start off just stretching those fingers a little bit, shaking them out. And have a look at this first exercise. A little bit different here in that we're going ascending through each finger, actually starting at the second fret of the low string. Okay, so we're going index, middle, ring, pinky, one per fret. And of course, our picking pattern is always going to be down, up, right? Okay. And what happens is we're going to actually make a shift one fret up and then come down those fingers on the same string. So it's going to look like this. Okay. So one of the many endless, seemingly, variations of the chromatic warm-up. So if you put it together and we want to do it on each string, going up each string, we look something like this. 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then once you get up there, we can do the same thing in reverse. So just shift up one more fret and do the same thing, but come down the strings, right? I'll count it in, all right? 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. So remember to shift down. Shift down at the end of each one of those strings. Okay. And you can do this for, as slow as you need to in order to make it nice and smooth and make your timing nice and consistent. What's the name of the song? The song is called Chromatic Warmup, Variation 1027. Okay. Yeah, so again, it's a chromatic. I mean, it's not meant to sound like anything. This is just merely an exercise. Just getting the fingers going. And once you feel comfortable with it, with a lot of different, with a lot of repetition of this type of exercise, you can work up some speed and kind of. Absolutely. And this thing, use it on any tuning. It doesn't really matter. It's not really meant to be a musical exercise. It's more just a purely physical exercise. Just get the fingers going. Right? So getting a little speed on it. You can do some speed focus practice on that. Dexterity, obviously. You can do just straightening out your straight alternate picking, and of course timing. All of that stuff gets worked. So it's a great little warm up. Definitely suggest put it in your practice routine. Yes, put it in your practice routine right at the beginning, and it'll get you good to go. All right, and go as slow as you need to go. All right, fingers position, Parna. You can see if you look at the first 4 notes, if I just go into a little more detail here, okay? 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret. You see you can stay in one position, 2nd fret to the 5th fret, where each fret get its own finger, right? Okay? Right on, Glenn. Excellent. Thanks for joining. Okay? But then the key part of this exercise is that you have to shift up 1 fret to come back down. Okay, so we're going up 1 fret and then coming down those fingers. And then when you switch to the next string, you're going to have to come back down 1 fret, shift up 1 fret, etc., etc. So it introduces a little bit of shifting, position shifting, as you're doing this warm-up, okay? Which is a really good thing to practice because you want to be nice and smooth on that, okay? Right on. Thanks, Kevin. Excellent. All right, so I'm going to move on from the chromatic warm-ups, and let's talk a little bit about sequencing and scales, okay? So in a way, this is just an extension of, our warm-up, but now we're starting to use an actual scale, and we're going to add an element into it that makes it a little more challenging, and that element is called sequencing, okay? So what I'm doing in this next exercise, which is 2A, exercise 2A on the handout PDF in the description, there should be a link right there, open it up, and you will see it. All right, so this is an A minor scale, straight natural minor, A minor, okay? And what I'm doing is, instead of just going up and down the scale pattern, well, first of all, I'm starting in the middle of the neck here with an A note, 7th fret of the D string. And if you put your pinky there, and if you're working in the 4th and then 5th positions, okay, because you kind of have to move a little bit, okay? I'm just focusing on the top 4 strings, okay? Straight A minor, natural minor scale pattern, okay? So that would be 1 octave. Now I'm going to use some notes on either side of that octave, but for the most part, that is the scale that we're playing, okay? A natural minor. Now, this idea of sequencing means that instead of just simply playing up that scale, okay, we can play it in what's known as a sequence. And in this case, I'm using a group of 4 sequence. So here's how it works. I'm going to start on the first note of the scale, the root note, okay? And I'm going to play the first, so I'm going to go 4 notes from that note that I start with and play the first 4 notes in that scale pattern. Okay, so you can see that the first 4 notes, it's a group of 16th notes there on the tab, is that, okay? Cool little variation there, Daniel, Mr. Daniel. Gives me a good idea at the end of this, okay? But absolutely, great suggestion. Okay? So that's the first 4 notes of the A natural minor scale. Okay. Now I'm going to play those 4 notes, and then I'm going to go to the second note in the scale and play up 4 notes from the second note. Then I'm going to go to the third note in the scale and play up 4 notes in the scale, etc., etc. So I'm doing the scale in chunks of 4 notes, and I'm just moving up each note in the scale and playing 4 notes from there, okay? So what you end up with is something that's not only a little more challenging because you're going back and forth within the scale, which is a lot more of a real world kind of thing that when you end up using scales, okay, we usually just don't go straight up and down, although you can, right? But most of the time you're doing something a little more musical, a little more interesting with those scales. So that involves us going up the strings, down the strings, and combining it, going back and forth. And this gives you a little more of a real world sort of texture on how to use these scales. And in fact, if you get good at, you get these under your fingers a little bit, they work great as little chunks in improvisation and coming up with your own leads. And in fact, if you transcribe solos, you might discover occasionally some licks that are just simply a sequence of a scale. Okay, so if I put it all together, this first exercise, 2A, sounds like this. Okay, what's up, Kenneth? No problem. Thanks for jumping in. Excellent. Kelsey, awesome. Cool. Okay, so, and even, you know, you start to get a little bit good at this. Add a little bit of speed to it, and suddenly it gets a little more musical, right? You could use, you know, you start using expressive techniques, like you could add in all hammer-ons and pull-offs, right? That kind of thing, right? Just to give it a little different flavor, okay? So expressive things like speed, hammer-ons and pull-offs, even kind of slide, you know, all sorts of things to explore within this. But really at the core of it, it's, you know, if we're used to just playing a scale up and down, okay, it's suddenly becomes a little more challenging especially here when you're working on the B string, where you have to kind of maybe shift positions a little bit. Sometimes you might have to use a finger roll, right? Like I finished this note. This kind of thing where you're on the same fret and maybe you're picking the B note, but then you have to go, the B string, 5th fret, but then you have to go to the G string really quickly, same fret. You're going to use the same finger, but you don't want to have them ring out on top of each other. So you use what's known as a finger roll, right? So I'm positioning my finger so that it's flatter on the B string, and then I can just curl it to hit the tip of it on the G string. And that way, I'm not even doing any muting. I'm just moving my finger in a finger roll. And that little technique cuts off each note as you go back and forth. Okay? So just a few little things in there, but anyway, so one more time, this is an ascending group of 4 sequence, A natural minor. All right, so then 2B is simply just coming down the scale in a little pattern. Again, group of 4, but you can come down, descending through the scale. And I did something like this. Okay, so that's what we're going for with that. Again, it's a little more challenging to get under your fingers, so I highly recommend putting your practice routine and just upping the ante a little bit. Mighty Vapor, I think. Mighty Vapor 82. I can use the circle of fourths for this, right? Yeah, circle of fourths is when you're going backwards through the scale, or circle of fifths going clockwise. I guess circle of fourths would be going counterclockwise. But certainly, if you wanted to just practice it in a bunch of different keys, the circle of fifths or the circle of fourths are a great way to just sort of switch keys in a logical sort of progression. Check out my video on the circle of fifths. It might be on the Facebook site for Guitar Tricks. I'm pretty sure I did one of these sessions on the circle of fifths, although it might have been on YouTube by then. I can't remember exactly. So that's cool. At any rate, the idea of sequences with using scale patterns, it makes it a little more challenging, but it's, once again, really great exercises for dexterity, getting your timing straight, and sort of getting a little more finger twisters, basically, is what's happening with this. Picking twisters and finger twisters that you want to break through that, go nice and slow, and get it under your fingers, and it will definitely serve you well. All right. Just want to chime in at this point, moving on to exercise 3. Welcome to any of the latecomers that have joined tonight. I really appreciate you jumping on. And as always, if we have some time at the end of this session towards the next top of the hour, I will take any guitar-related question, as many as I can fit in for the rest of the session. But we've got some more exercises to work through. So exercise 3 is a strumming exercise. And I thought what I would do was come up with a little bit of a strum pattern that emphasizes the upstrokes a little bit. So we've got some down ups going on in the first part of this. If you have a look at the top line here of exercise 3. Okay. And I've got this G chord, 3rd fret of the low string, 2nd fret of the A, open D, open G string, but it's the G chord that has the 3rd fret of the top 2 strings fretted as well. Okay. And okay, so down, up, up. All right, so you can see, let's look at this staff a little bit, because that'll give you a clue as to what the rhythm is for this strum. And you can see that these are 8th notes, right? Is playing in thirds considered a sequence? I'll answer that towards the end of the session. That's a great question. Need to get some clarification on what you mean by playing in thirds. You could play a group of 3 sequence, but typically when I think of playing in thirds is when you're harmonizing, maybe playing double stops with like a note and then a third above it in a certain key. It's maybe what I'm thinking. But you can certainly play a scale with a group of 3 sequence, which would be, you know, obviously similar to the group of 4, but you're just doing it every 3 notes. Okay. Hopefully that helps. All right. Getting back to this G chord, and we're trying to look at the rhythm of this, and you can see that these are all 8th notes rhythms. Okay. And so it's easy to break up 8th note rhythms into down ups, and you're going to play a down up for every beat in the measure. And so every beat in the measure goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are your quarter notes. Okay. Those are your downbeats. And we make them into 8th notes when we put an upstroke in between each of those. So now we're going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and really important when we're strumming to try and get the flow of the strumming hand like this to keep it going. Okay. So that's very simple. In the first half of the bar on this G chord, we're going down, up, down, up. Okay. Now what happens is we're going to miss the next downstroke, but come in on the next upstroke. So you're going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and. You see on the 3rd beat, I still went like this, but I didn't strum the strings. I just kind of did the motion, but did not put the pick on the strings. Okay. That's what I'm going for here, because it's going to be much easier to keep time if I keep this going. If I go like this, if I stop that rhythm, my timing is going to be a lot more off. Okay. But if I keep this rhythm going all through it and then just choose when to strike the strings on the strum, that's going to give me a much more consistent, much more solid timing. Okay. So for added complication, I have that no downstroke but an upstroke on the G chord, and then there's another no downstroke, but then it moves to a B minor chord on the upstroke, which is kind of a little bit challenging. So that first bar looks like this. Whoa, hit my volume. Sorry, one more time. Okay. So that's the first bar there. And in the second bar, you can see it's 2 more upstrokes. So I'm going to play 2 more upstrokes in that rhythm. So then just let the rest ring out for the rest of the second bar. One more time. Again. All right, sort of getting the idea? Keeping this going, okay? Going into the third and fourth bar, we have some different chords, but it's the same strumming pattern in the second line, okay? So now I'm going to an E minor, E minor chord, okay? That's the first bar. I'm staying on E minor, down, up, up, and then on the next upstroke, I'm going back to the G chord. In the next bar, I'm going to do one more upstroke, but then on the upstroke after that, I'm going to an open D chord. Okay? So this